In Windchill, you can create a manufacturing bill of materials or an eBOM by transforming an existing engineering bill of materials or an eBOM. Let's take a look at how to do that. Here I am in Windchill. I am in a web browser. I am looking at a folder that contains the components for a flip phone. I'm going to go to this object, which is the top level of the flip phone. So here we are on the structure tab. If we take a look at the top, this particular WT part is an end item, and in this Windchill instance, they have a number of different subtypes for parts, those WT parts, and this one is a mechanical part. As Windchill comes out of the box, you won't have different subtypes like a mechanical part. This one happens to have one created. And I'm using this assembly because it has 3 different subassemblies in its structure, and I have 3 different things that I want to show you. So I'm going to start by going to one of the subassemblies. I'm going to right click and then choose View Information to go to its structure, and you can see that this has a number of different components in it. If we take a look at the version, we can see the revision and the iteration for all these objects is 1.1, but in parentheses, you see the word design. And so there are these different things called views for your WT parts, and out of the box you have a design view, which is associated with the eBOM or engineering BOM, and you also have a manufacturing view, which you use for your manufacturing bills of material. And to create the manufacturing bill of materials from this particular component, you will go to the Actions menu, and then up at the top we have Open In, and there are a number of different choices in here. We are going to open this in the Manufacturing Associative Part Structure browser. When I click on that, it's going to end up opening up another utility. And so over here on the left, we have our eBOM, our engineering bill of materials. You can see all the different objects in here. And there's also a status column. And if I hover my mouse over one of the yellow triangles in the status column, it says that there's no equivalent part. And this is a big thing about eBOM-mBOM transformation. You want to keep track of, hey, what is the equivalent part in the mBOM for this object in the eBOM and vice versa. So let's say I want to start off my manufacturing bill of materials. To do that, I can right click on the top node, and then I'm going to create a new downstream branch. So the engineering bill of materials, that's considered upstream, and then the manufacturing bill of materials, that's considered downstream. So I will click on the command, and we get a dialog box that opens up. And so for our downstream view, well, here we have design or manufacturing. You could actually create another variation of the engineering bill of materials as a downstream branch, but we want to do our manufacturing bill of materials, so I will choose manufacturing. And here in this Windchill instance, there are a few different BOM types for manufacturing BOMs. You can have a costing BOM, a production BOM, or a testing BOM in this instance. This one will be for production. It's how we're going to build it. And then there's another optional drop-down list where you could give a number for the alternate bill of materials. And the reason for this is that you could have multiple manufacturing bills of material depending on the plant where this is going to be manufactured, because one plant might have a different production line than another plant, so you might need to fabricate and assemble components in a different order. We don't need to select anything. Just for giggles, I will choose 001 as the downstream alternate BOM. And then we have a drop-down list here for the child structure options. I chose an assembly that had 3 subassemblies, so I can show you the effect of each of these different operations. And so the first choice is do not duplicate, and then we have duplicate with propagating and duplicate without propagating. let's choose Do Not Duplicate, and we can see the context in which this will be created. Then we can specify the folder where this WT part is going to be created. I will use the little search button, and I want to make sure that this ends up in the same folder as the eBOM. Hey, your mileage may vary. You might want to have your manufacturing bill of materials in a different folder for organization than your engineering bill of materials. Figure out what works for you. And so then we have our new object identification section, and here is the selected upstream object. And then for the existing downstream object, right now it's saying recalculate needed. By changing the different options in here, it tells us we need to do some recalculation. Let's hit the recalculate button, and now this field here is blank. I can click the OK button, and we get the little progress window. And now we get another dialog box, adjust expansion criteria. Do you want to adjust the expansion criteria so that the new downstream object will appear? In other words, do I want to see the mBOM over on the right? Yes, I do. And so when I click on that, now we take a look at our manufacturing bill of materials. All we have is the downstream branch over on the right. We don't have anything else listed in here because we chose not to duplicate any of the different child objects. If we take a look in the status column, there is a green check mark, and it says that the equivalent part exists and points to the latest iteration. Sometimes you can have an equivalent part, but you'll have a little clock symbol indicating that it does not point to the latest iteration. But for all the other different objects in here, we have the yellow triangle saying that the equivalent part does not exist. And sometimes you want to create the manufacturing bill of materials, the mBOM with nothing in there, so that you can start rearranging the objects. Maybe you're going to move some objects into new WT parts. Sometimes you use Creo View to drag and drop items over there. Sometimes you want to start off empty so that you have a lot of control over how the different objects end up in your manufacturing bill of materials. But this is good for the key assembly for the phone. Let's close the manufacturing associative part structure browser. And next up, let's go back to the previous object so I can get to one of the other different WT part subassemblies. Let's go to the -200. Once again, I will view information, and we can see the structure over here on the right. Once again, if I want to create the mBOM for this particular eBOM, I will go to Actions, Open In, and Open in Manufacturing Associative Part Structure Browser. And again, we get the same utility that opens up. Let's right-click once again and choose to create a new downstream branch. And we will choose manufacturing once again, and this one will also be for production. I'm not going to choose a downstream alternate BOM because I don't care. Let's go to the child structure options, and this time instead of do not duplicate, I'm going to duplicate with propagating. And once again, I will choose the same folder in which the eBOM and the CAD documents reside. Once again, we need to recalculate, and then I will click the OK button. We have our progress window. And once again, I will say yes to adjust the expansion criteria. And so now when we take a look, we have a full structure over on the right. You can see that we have green check marks in both status columns, which once again indicates that the equivalent part exists and points to the latest iteration. But one thing I want you to note is that over on the left, where we have our upstream object, you'll notice that the view is design. Over on the right, we have our structure, but the view for these is manufacturing. So when we chose the child structure option, duplicate with propagating, it ended up creating manufacturing views for all the objects in the structure. And so while I'm here, let me show you some other operations that you can do for your mBOM manipulation. So we take a look at the top, we have some drop-down lists where we can do some editing, like insert an existing WT part into the structure. But sometimes when you're working on the manufacturing bill of materials, you are going to insert a new object. For example, you might need to create a new level of hierarchy in the manufacturing bill of materials. So I can choose to insert new. And when I did that, you'll notice that there's the little icon on the WT part that looks like the checkout symbol. It automatically checked out the mBOM when I did this. And so here we have a dialog box. Here we have a type drop-down list. Again, out of the box, you are not going to have all these different types of WT parts. These were created in the instance that I am using. Let's choose this to be a mechanical part. Normally, I would just choose part. And then we have a form to fill out. And so I'm going to make a new level of hierarchy so I can organize some of the LCD components in here. So let's make up a part number. This is going to be G2-S51-200- and let me just see what kind of number I can make up. Let's just choose 90001. And then let's go to name this object, and I'm just going to call this the LCD subassembly G2-S51 phone, whatever. I can rename this later on. And then we have our assembly mode. Is this separable, inseparable, or a component? I'm fine with separable. And the source, are we going to make or buy this from a single source? Hey, we're the manufacturer. Let's say that we are going to make this, and the view will be manufacturing, not design. For this one, the default trace code, hey, let's set this to be a lot trace code. And then default unit each, gathering part no, phantom manufacturing part no, stop effectivity propagation, yes, and lifecycle template. Let's see, for the folder, it's going to go into the same folder as the other objects. No, this is not a service kit. And default serviceable, yes, that's all good. I'm not going to create a corresponding CAD document because this only exists in the manufacturing bill of materials. Do we want to keep this checked out after check-in? Well, let's just choose finish. And so when I do that, where is that object? Here we have it in the list, the LCD subassembly. And so if I want to move some of the components into this new structure level, I can just drag them and then drop them, and it automatically checks out the object, and it expands this level to show that it contains this particular component. And let's find the other one that has LCD in the name. Let's drag that into the new structure. That looks good. Hey, everything is nice. And now that I've done this manipulation, let's check in the different objects. I can right-click check in, and you can write in a comment. You can keep it checked out after check-in, but I don't need to do that. And let's also check in this one, and right-click, check in, and then click the OK button. So again, this time I made our mBOM by duplicating the child structure with propagation, which ended up creating our different manufacturing view objects in the mBOM. That's good for this one. Let's close out of here. Once again, I will go to recently accessed to go to the end item, and then I can go to the third subassembly. Let's view its information. And so here we can see that there are 4 components in the battery assembly. Once again, we'll go to actions, open in, and then open in the MAPSB or whatever it's called. All right, so now I've got the upstream eBOM over on the left. Let's right click once more and create a new downstream branch. manufacturing, production. I'm not going to do a number. Let's choose the third option this time, duplicate without propagating. Let me choose my downstream location. Dialog box is a little small this time for some reason. Let's click OK. Recalculate needed. We'll click recalculate and then click the OK button. We have our progress bar. Yes, we are going to adjust the expansion criteria. And so now when you take a look, okay, we have our status column with all green check marks, meaning that an equivalent part exists and points to the latest iteration. We also have that on the right-hand side. Here we have our design view for the 300 assembly. And over on the right, we have the manufacturing production view of the 300 level. But if you take a look at all the objects inside of here, their view is the design view. And so we can use this when you don't need to have a manufacturing view of an object in the manufacturing BOM. Hey, sometimes you can use the same view of a WT part in the eBOM and the mBOM if there's no differences that you need between them. So that's good for this method. Let's close out of here. And then the next thing that I'm going to do, let's go to, first of all, the end item. And I'm just looking at the numbering system for these objects because I want to take a look at the folder and see what we have in our folder for these different objects. Let me go to the G2 whatever folder. Here's the object, and we can see that with the table view set to all, we've got 73 different objects listed in here. You can see the different WT parts and the different CAD documents. Let's go to search in the table, and I'm going to narrow this list down just so that we can see those objects that we were working on. And then dash, let's use a question mark wildcard, and then everything for what I was working on should have 0001. And I didn't like that. Let's just use, there we go. So using the asterisk, now I can see, okay, here's the top level, and we can see that we have its corresponding CAD document. Here's a skeleton model, and then we have those 3 assemblies that I worked on. But if you take a look at the version, we can see that these have manufacturing production, and here's that 001 that I selected. Here we have manufacturing production, and this one says design. So it's just showing us the manufacturing view. Now, one thing is, like, I like to see both the design view and the manufacturing view together. So in order to do that, I'm going to create my own custom table view. So I'm going to go to the list of the different table views that are in here, and then let's choose customize. And I could start off with one of the existing views, but let's create a brand new table view from scratch. I will hit the new icon, and then the name for this one, let me call this my BOM WT parts, and I will show this in my current view. You could choose, if you have the right permissions, to share this with all users, and I'm the only user, so I'm not going to check that. And then we have our different object types. I only want to display parts in here. I don't care about CAD documents, so let me change this to just be part. And again, in this particular instance, there are a number of other different subtypes. This one has supplier parts and vendor parts because the instance also has parts link for managing your supply chain. And then let's click on the next button. And now for all the different object types in here, I'm going to go to the criteria drop-down list, and then we're going to find view. Here's the view option. And then click on the add button. And for the operator, instead of equal to, I'm going to change this to is set. If the view is set, then we want it displayed in the table. Then let's click on the next button. And then for the different columns that we want displayed in here, there are a lot. Let's see. Let's go to, I definitely want to have the number in here. And just give me a minute while I configure the different columns I want to have. All right, now I've got all the columns in the order I want them to appear. Let's click next, and then for the sorting, we will sort by the number. And then if you want to, I don't know, number should be good enough, but I will also choose the name, and just to make sure that's unique, last modified. So that's good. Let's click on the Finish button, and then let's click the OK button. And we get the confirmation to refresh the window. I will say yes. And then let's change this drop-down list to our new table. It will remove the search criteria. Let's click OK. And now if you take a look in here, you can see that we are seeing the design views and the manufacturing views. So for example, here we have two objects with the same name, the same number, and we can see the design view and the manufacturing view in this one list. So that's how you can customize the table view to see these different objects. Hey, let's go to the top level. Just for completeness, let's go to its structure and let's create its manufacturing bill of materials. Let's go to Actions, Open In, and then the manufacturing blah, 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 blah. And let's right click on it and then choose to create our new downstream branch. And this will be manufacturing and production. And I'm going to choose Do Not Duplicate just to have the widest possible variety of options when I go to show you more stuff for a bill of materials. Let's recalculate and then click the OK button. And yes, we will adjust the expansion criteria. And we can see that, yep, in this particular case here, we have the manufacturing BOM started. We did not duplicate any of the structure. I can see here in the design view now we have a status that the equivalent part exists, but does not point to the latest iteration. So that's something else that I will have to take care of later on. So I hope that this video gives you a good starting point, a basis for transforming an engineering bill of materials into a manufacturing bill of materials. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more information, please visit www.creowindchill.com. If you learned something from this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like this video, please click the subscribe button and ring the bell to be informed when new videos are uploaded. Thank you very much.